Welcome to Destroy All Podcast presents Nintendo Roulette. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Cade.
And the basic idea of this is that we randomly select one of any of the Nintendo Entertainment System or Japanese family computer games and play it for half an hour and then talk about it no matter how bad or how Japanese it is. This time we got Metal Storm or Gravity Armor Metal Storm in Japan, which is actually good.
Really good.
This is easily the best game that we've played on this podcast. And I really like it. So the story is stupid. There's a giant moon thing, basically the Death Star, called Cyber.
Oh, is it on the moon, not Pluto?
Well, a moon.
A moon.
I don't think it was like a particular... I mean, it might have been one of Pluto's moons. It wasn't our moon.
I see.
But it is a moon hollowed out with a giant laser cannon in it, which is supposed to protect the Earth, but is instead gone crazy and is now blowing up the planets.
Systematically destroying all the planets in the solar system.
And it blew up Pluto, or was it Neptune?
Neptune.
Blew up Neptune.
While the Earth Nation watched.
Yeah. They send in the toughest robot in the Earth Nation's armada, which is the M308 Gunner, which is a chubby robot that can switch gravity, which is really why this game is awesome, is the gravity switching thing. So it's sort of your standard platforming shooter. Like, it's kind of like Contra, but because of the gravity switch thing, there's so much more strategy about everything you're doing. And
it's sort of a half puzzle, half shooter.
Yeah, it moves much slower than a game like Contra, but it's way more interesting.
Yeah.
And it is one player only, but I think that's fine, because if you're trying to do it with two people, it would rapidly get confusing.
Yeah, it's more of an adventure sort of thing where you take your time figuring out the puzzles.
Yeah.
And every level was really creative. They did something brand new and creative with every stage. The first one was just kind of basic, just you're learning the controls and shooting the enemies. Then the second one, it was this big mirror stage. So you would jump, if you fell through the bottom of the screen, you'd come through the top, that sort of thing, or it would rotate. And then the third level, there's this constant electric tram thing coming through.
The monorail train is going around. And, what was the fourth one like? Because we beat that boss too.
You know what? I don't think we were on the fourth. We were on the third boss, but we didn't beat the third boss.
Oh, maybe that's what it was.
Yeah.
We kept playing it even after our half an hour ran out because we liked it so much, but we didn't keep going forever. But yeah, this game is really creative, and I guess it's violent, but only on the level of violence on it is so...
Just the fact that you're shooting stuff, that's it.
Yeah, you are a little robot and you're shooting other robots, and, and it's... there's like little laser beams, but it's barely violent. Like Mario Brothers is literally more violent than this.
Yeah, you're actually stomping creatures and stuff.
Yeah. So, I think this is totally appropriate for all ages, but I don't know if young children would really have the patience to figure it out.
Yeah, you never know. I've seen young kids play these sort of more puzzly games, and they really get into it and start to try to figure it out and solve it. It was worth it for me to slow down a little bit, because my first reaction is to just run through and shoot stuff. But I started taking my time a little bit more, and it was really fun to sort of figure out and then the best way to do it. But the cool thing is you can't take forever because there's a timer.
Right.
And we suffered for that.
Yeah, we ran out of time a couple times.
But once you start to figure out the puzzles, then you can blast through, and you can actually get a pickup to get an extra 100 seconds or something.
Yeah, there were several power-ups which we couldn't figure out what they did at the time until we looked it up. But
they're all just labeled with letters.
Yeah, one power-up, like you say, is the time. One power-up gives you an additional hit point, so you don't die immediately when you're touched.
Yeah.
One gives you a stronger weapon. One gives you a shield. And one makes it so when you flip gravity, you... turn into a fireball if you kill enemies. And really, the gravity flip thing is the most creative part of the whole game.
It's so cool. Yeah, you have to flip constant. It's not like every once in a while is a novelty. It's the game is flipping gravity,
Even in the boss fights, you have to flip gravity. And the other thing, too, is it's not just when you flip gravity, your guy is now on the ceiling, and when he jumps, he points down. It's everyone. So if there are enemies walking around, they also flip gravity with you, which is really cool. There are mounted turrets that don't flip, but that makes sense. But all of the enemies, there's like these chicken walking robots. They sort of look like the bad guys from Macross or Robotech, if you prefer. But the bad guys, none of them are that difficult, but a lot of them respawn immediately, which can be troublesome, especially in the level where everything was like a mirror. Because there were these little spaceships
coming through the little corridors,
Yeah, they're really narrow corridors, and the spaceships would take up the whole lane of the corridor that they're in, but they're also shooting missiles that take up the lane above and the lane below them.
Yeah.
So they're really hogging 3 lanes, and if you're in the same line of it and you jump up, you're still in the line of fire. So you have to be very careful with those, and they keep coming and coming, and you're just kind of mad dash to the end of the level so you can get to the boss without getting hit by these fucking spaceships.
Yeah. One of the toughest enemies were those little clamps. You would jump up into a corridor, and then there'd be these 2 things at either end, and would try and smash you in the middle.
Yeah, it's just like the first Zelda. There were these things when you go into a room with certain dungeons, and they would like slam on you.
Right.
It's just like that. But you can jump up a little and trick them and make them come forward, and then while they're slowly going back to the original position, you can jump through them. Yeah. But it's easy to get screwed by.
It's really, because it's one of the cool things is the jumping. It's not just a standard jump. Depends on how long you hold the jump button.
Yeah.
So if you don't hold it long enough, you don't make it into the corridor. And if you hold it too long, then you don't have enough time to jump again to avoid these things.
Yeah, it's really tough, but I also feel like it's fair. It's consistent. The control works the same way every time. If you die, it's your fault every time.
Yeah, and we definitely got better at handling the different kinds of enemies. And
yeah. If, I don't know, there are a lot of video games, especially old Nintendo games, where I felt like it's the game's fault I died. There are problems.
Right.
And
like that last one we played, it was just kind of random. It was getting screwed, it felt like every time. Yeah.
But this game, no. Like, I really do feel like every time we died, it was our own damn fault.
Yeah, and it said something in the review that we read about that it was, gave it a 3.7 in terms of control.
Yeah, on the Nintendo Power, because it was a cover. There was a cover article on Nintendo Power. I think it was number 22. I think they said, and they give it like 3.5, 3.7 for like everything, and I'm like, the control 3.7 for control. Really, I thought the control was really precise.
Yeah,
like, it seriously was our fault every time we died.
Yeah,
so. I don't think that's fair.
No, I don't think it was fair. Some of the other stuff, the graphics, they weren't amazing.
I mean, this was
especially with the US version. We should talk about that.
Okay, so that's true. We did play both the US and the Japanese version, and the US version came out in 1991, and the Japanese version came out in 1992. Remember, of course, the Super Nintendo came out in 1991 as well, so you can see why you would probably have a little trouble selling this, because, 16-bit looks way better, but for a Nintendo Entertainment System title, it looks really good, but the Japanese one looks better than the American one. So part of it is a coloring thing. The American one, the robot is like orange, like looks like the color of like a peach.
Yeah, and kind of blends into the background.
Yeah, and I kept having this problem where I wouldn't see the gun turrets because they were almost the same color as the background. So I would die from that.
Yeah, the color scheme, it felt like a negative. It was just, the colors all clashed and they all kind of blended together.
But the Japanese version that came out a year later, the robot is white, which, by the way, is the same color it is on the cover of the game and the cover of Nintendo Power. And, I don't know if there was like some official like color that it was supposed to be according to the developers or whatever, but the white one looks better and is easier to make out against the background.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the robot's color that was changed. There was also certain background pieces that were white now, too.
Yep. Yeah, the background moved, I guess.
Yeah, there was also that parallax thing.
The foreground, background.
Yeah, the NES does not support hardware parallax scrolling where different levels of background scroll at different speeds as you walk.
Right.
So they faked this effect by constantly redrawing the background, which was really clever, but occasionally distracting.
Yeah.
But
especially in the US.
It was a lot better in the Japanese version. It was. The backgrounds, you tended to have more white in the backgrounds, and the gun turrets, which were green, stood out more, so it was a lot easier, I thought, to look at.
It was.
So I do think the Japanese version is an improvement. However, I also noticed that some of the bosses seemed to take... Fired a little faster in the US version. In the US. But we also read, we didn't get to level 7, but we read that in level 7, there are... little barriers, little laser barrier things keeping you from... You know how we mentioned before on level 2, you can jump from... If you jump all the way through the bottom, you come out the top.
Yeah.
It does the same kind of thing in the American version for level 7, but the Japanese version, there's laser things preventing you from doing that.
Right.
So I guess in some ways the Japanese one is a little bit harder, but I thought the bosses were harder in the American one because of the increased rate of fire for the bosses. So
right. One thing I should mention about that, the second level with the mirror, is that you're always... So you don't... It's not like the level's static and you jump in the bottom and you come out the top, you're always in the center of the level, and the level itself scrolls vertically.
Yeah.
And that was it was really confusing. We didn't even realize what was happening at first. We just thought there was more level below and up, but it was all mirrored. So you could shoot through the top and hit something that was below you, or you could like flip the gravity and and fall to where you couldn't see, and then land up where you saw before at top to get a power up or something.
It sounds kind of like Bubble Bobble, but Bubble Bobble doesn't scroll. It's just Bubble Bobble. If you go out the top, you end up on the bottom, or vice versa. But because of the way the level moves with your guy, it's a really good illusion, because you feel at first like you're just walking through a bigger level, and then you realize what's happening, and you're like, oh my god. Not only, this isn't like a cheap trick to make the level seem bigger than it is. You actually have to use this strategically. Like, you can shoot guys by firing to the floor below you, and they come through the top and kill the guy from the top. It's really cool.
And you can see all parts of the level at the same time. So or at least vertically, you can see the entire level, which I didn't realize either. I thought that there was like at least a little bit that was sort of unseen, but it's literally the very top is connects to the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
left and right is not like that, though. Left and right just moves normally.
That's how you get to the end of the level. Yeah.
But there's this one weird part where you can jump into space, and you keep falling and falling and falling forever, because you're coming out the top right as you fall at the bottom. But it's not like it's not like the screen is still and you hit the floor and come out the ceiling. You just keep falling and falling. It seems like an endless corridor.
Yeah.
Which is a really cool effect.
Yeah.
And one thing I noticed that you can't do is you can't switch gravity in the middle of falling. You can only switch gravity once until you touch down.
Well, you can in the middle of falling, but you can only do it one time.
Right, but like after that, then you're stuck.
After that, you're stuck in that direction. Yep. Yeah, because it was kind of cool. There was a couple of jumps that we had to make, or at least that I made, where I jumped and then switched. As I was jumping forward, I switched gravity in the middle of it to land it. And
but you can't do it again. Like when we were in that limbo falling forever, you can't switch back and forth.
I guess if you got really good at that, you could just, breeze through the middle of a level or something, just switching back and forth.
Yeah.
Not that you could do it in this game. It's too challenging for that, but...
There's too many things trying to kill you for that to really... You can't blast through this like Sonic the Hedgehog or something.
Right.
But, this game is really clever. Let's talk about our favorite thing and our least favorite thing about the game.
All right. My least favorite thing was the U.S. version color scheme. It was just, I'm partially colorblind, or they color deficient, or whatever they call it, and so the things blended in too much for me. My favorite part was that they put in all these sort of puzzles where you can only jump certain directions, and it was just very, very creative. It seemed like, even within one little stage, there was all these different little puzzles to solve, and they were all different than the last one. So the creativity in the puzzles.
Okay. My least favorite thing is the story is fucking stupid. I mean, it's amusing for like 10 seconds because we're like, haha, they just blew up a planet. But the US version omits the opening, story. Although I guess you can get to it from a Game Genie code. But like, the story is dumb, so I see why they left it out. But like, it seems silly that they put in the effort to make the cutscene and then they didn't even translate it or whatever.
Yeah.
I did see that somebody on the internet did a fan translation.
Oh, you know what? Maybe no. They may have made the cutscene later, because the Japanese version was a later version. Came out a year later.
Yeah, but they said that you can run a Game Genie code of the American one and it will show the cutscene.
Oh.
But it's kind of garbage.
So it was in there originally?
Yeah, I think maybe they just didn't finish it.
Oh, I see.
But anyway, the story is stupid, but it doesn't matter that much for this kind of game.
Yeah.
The story to Super Mario Brothers is also stupid, but that game is also great. So.
Right.
My favorite thing about this is the way the game subtly teaches you how it works. Because you learn a technique basically by trial and error, but once you figure it out, then you have to apply it to something else almost immediately.
Yeah.
The only game I can think of that really works quite this way is like Super Metroid, which teaches you the techniques as you gain them. Like there's this really cool part in Super Metroid where you learn the ability to wall jump, and you have to figure out how to use it by seeing an alien do it.
Okay.
Like it teaches you these things by you experiencing them.
Right, as opposed to like some little dialogue.
It's not like how in Super Mario World you hit these little speaker things and it's like, hey, did you know you can ride a Yoshi? And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I like the way that it visually teaches you this information. Like it's not something that talks down to you. You learn it almost intuitively.
Right.
So that's really clever.
Yeah. I love games that do that instead of a sort of a separate tutorial, they actually take you through something that you're sort of forced into learning these things in a natural way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really clever. So I think this game is something that you should absolutely check out. I doubt very much that they've put it out in like the visual console or virtual console rather, or anything like that for modern systems, but you can certainly get an emulator or go, buy the cartridge online. But frankly, I'd say you're better off playing the Japanese version.
Japanese, definitely, which is not called Metal. What's it called?
It's called Gravity Armor Metal Storm.
Gravity
as opposed
Armor.
to just Metal Storm.
Exactly.
And I mean, that's one of those Japanese, we love to overtitle things. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think Tamtex did a really good job, and the ERM, the company that did the publishing, they, are pretty consistently known for incredibly hard-ass games. And this game is it's not like R-Type, but it's still kind of tough.
It's challenging, for sure.
Yeah. But it's not unfair. Like, I frequently feel R-Type is unfair.
Okay.
So... And there was a cameo from one of the spaceships in R-Type that did show up in the game, which is kind of neat.
We didn't see, but yes.
Well, I saw a picture of it online, but we didn't get that far in our half-hour play.
It's in the background, right?
Yeah, it's just in the background, but it looked pretty cool.
Nice.
Anyway, check out this game. Give us feedback at destroyallpodcastdx.com, or comment on Collection DX or www.destroyallpodcast.com. Or on YouTube. You want to plug yourself, Kate?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have a podcast also. It's called The Spiritual Crapcast. I do it with a friend. We have guests on. We talk about life, sex, and spirituality. It's on iTunes. There's a website, spiritualcrapcast.com. That's about it.
Okay. Do you have like a Twitter or something you want?
Yeah, at Spirit Crapcast.
Okay, cool. I am at Why Do I Say on Twitter. Okay, thanks very much. Bye.